Oh, looky there. I got started early. It's about 5 seconds before 9 o'clock. Good morning, 9 o'clock straight up now, April 13th, 2023. This is Windows Daily number 195. Check here for an audio confirmation when this comes live. And it's on live on my other screen. And then here we go. Unmute. Yep, there he is. There's Doug. I am the Thursday Doug. Why is this the Thursday Doug? Well, because today's Thursday. Duh, Doug. Did you ever realize how close duh is to Doug? There's a reason for that. You'll have to figure that out on your own. Brian Lightfoot, there's a sign on a shoe repair shop that reads, "We will heal you. We will save your soul. We will even die for you." I guess since I can't read that without laughing, that's a score for Brian. And another one, there's another sign on the back of septic tank truck that reads, "Caution, this truck is full of political promises." There you nailed my political persuasion. Jeff Ryman says, good morning, Tim Sal. Another great day. A keyboard video monitor switch. No, not video monitor. Keyboard. I almost said volt monitor. Keyboard video mouse. That's what a KVM switch is. Went out on our computer in shipping and receiving. Josh Kinder says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, Josh. I've been doing some research, Chris says. I've been doing some research on the Latitude 3520 and the Inspiron 3520. Somehow I thought they were the same, but cannot remember where I heard that. Yeah, I don't think they're the same at all. I read that they were the same, but cannot remember where. Yeah, I don't think so. Can't say that I've looked into specifics. In my mind, Inspiron is more of a business design model. Latitude more of a personal design model. What does that really mean, though? What do they consider to be business features? What do they consider to be personal features? Sometimes that's a little arguable. Chris says, Belloc Advisor will tell you the motherboard model number. I thought I Googled it and found it that way, but I Googled it today and could not see anything. Chris DeBryan is laughing. Rick Lakes, hello. Chris says, I saw a sign on a trash truck. Oops, where did this jump to? That said, wanna talk trash? Call, and it had their number. Call, I guess that's inviting you to call, and gave their phone number. Hellos between peoples. Rick Lakes, ran Israel. Rick Lake says I slept over 10 hours. I have slept far more than 10 hours in the last 2 days. Black Serendipity says, I wonder if Doug will tempt fate today. It's Thursday the 13th, just one day off from the magical Friday this month. You know, actually, interesting that you asked that, because when I saw April 13th, somehow that just gave a ring of familiarity to me, like April 13th is some special day, and the only thing that came to my mind was Friday the 13th, but this is Thursday the 13th. I think I've told you before, my parents were married on a Friday the 13th, but get this, in a funeral mortuary, because it was after World War II, all the churches were booked, and that's all they could get in a funeral parlor. And because they were married on Friday the 13th, they took the extra step of every Friday the 13th that occurred throughout their marriage was another wedding anniversary celebration for them. Now, for most of their life, they did that privately between them. We didn't learn about it until, they were in their 80s, I think. Cute story. Will he do a broadcast? It's Thursday the 13th. Just, I'll do a broadcast. I would do a broadcast on Friday the 13th, just fine. Josh Kinder, hi everyone. And I would even do if it was a broadcast, if it was Friday the 13th and Halloween Day. I'll leave that to you to figure out. High five, Chris Garrett from Black. Bright and sunny. Rick, I was not on Zoom last night. Too tired to even try to stay awake that long, so 9 p.m. Central Time I went to bed. Let's see, Brian to Rick, got about 9 hours after a major headache. Speedy C, hello. Bobby Warren, hello. Bobby Warren, I had to get a new computer. My IT team tried to reinstall Windows. It didn't work. Well, what would that imply? There's some hardware problem with the computer that he had. He was telling us about that yesterday in his classroom, or at first his smart board on the wall, think of electronic chalkboard, was blinking green. Well, later it occurred to me, well, how about rebooting the smart board? I imagine that's got to be a thing. It's got to have a CPU in it. The one oopsie wrong account. Studio Owl. The one oopsie wrong account. Not sure what that's reference to. Ken Stout is here, and I do have a redirect set up for Ken's live show at the bottom of the hour. On the old computer. Windows didn't work on the old computer, yeah. And yes, George, I got your email. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Bobby Warren, hey Ken, I am late. I am late too. I didn't have Doug's channel bookmarked on my new computer. Yeah, if you do youtube.com/LWTDB, that's the acronym for my channel. If you look at the name of the channel, LiveWindowsTraining-DougBetts, LWTDB. So youtube.com/LWTDB/live. That will always take you to the current running live stream or the next scheduled live stream. So if you click on that link before I've scheduled the show for tomorrow, then it'll just come up with my channel. Yates Networks, what up, Douglas D? Hello, Yates. Ken Stout, thanks for the sub. Howard, sadly, I dropped back to 259. Sure to watch Daily Da Vinci. Oh, that's from Ken too, George. For those who don't know yet, SGT GJJ is George, and I'm going to guess, George, that this is Sergeant George, and your last name is begins with a J. Is it okay for me to say what your last name is? So I'm guessing that GJJ is your 3-letter initials for your name. Am I right? Did I figure that out? It's Douglas. It's not Douglas, it's Douglas. We want less Dougs, fewer Dougs. Mortant says hello to me and everyone in chat. Chris Garrett, it said call that number and ask for Ginny. And that would have been the garbage truck, I think. Eats Network, I got like 8 last night, 8 hours at best, but I think it's enough, I hope. Bobby to Ken, I had to log into my computer this morning. Skipping through a little bit quicker, usually keep it logged into Chrome. Rick to Ken, slept over 10 hours, back still hurts. Just found out I'm going to Mom's on Saturday or Sunday. Doctor appointment on Tuesday. Yates, just spoke with Nabel. Probably going to resume my partnership. I have no idea who Nabel is. John Williams, good morning. The smart board usually be connected to the computer. So it can, the smart board usually be connected to the computer so it can. The smart board usually be connected to the computer so it can it. The smart board usually be connected to the computer so it can it. Yeah, I don't know. Take control and MSP manager. Oh, is that what Nabel is? Take control and MSP manager for Nabel is a partnership for managing your clients' computers. LWTDB, does BB stand for Big B's? No, it's DB as in Doug Betts, not BB. And I came up with that long before the Big Beast build was even a twinkle in my eye. Dennis is watching DVR mode. I have a Twitch subscription due each 13th of the month. George says, you are right. I'm right about his initials. Sergeant George JJ. He didn't say I could give his last name yet, which is kind of a normal thing. When people give me their full names, I assume that means I can use it. But I do know George is new around here. Bobby Warren says work. So it can work. Oh, the smartboard usually be connected to the computer so it can work. Yeah, think of the smartboard as I think the smartboards, think of it as a touch screen, I suppose. Not really, because it's not showing you a monitor screen, but you can interact with it. So it's not just a display. It's not just an output device, but it's also an input device. Because you can touch things on it, I think. You write things on it, and it shows up on the computer screen as well. Ken says the hip bone usually be connected to the leg bone in some humans. Yates works. They were bought out. Oh, Doug. Jeez. Ken is asking George if he's retired military. Dennis is caught up. Last name is okay to use. So Sergeant George Justine. Bobby Warren, I have a projector. I have a USB cord and a VGA cord. Oh. Well, the projector, let's see. The projector would be for projecting onto the smartboard. Would you actually project onto the smartboard or onto some other screen? Okay, so I'm going to come back here and set something else up. I've got George's chat messages yesterday to get us up to date with what's going on with him. He started out by asking in chat yesterday, do you know how to take a hard drive I removed from a damaged laptop that has Windows 10 on it and put it in an enclosure with USB connection, and I want to connect it to a new computer with Windows on it, and set up a dual boot so I can go back and forth. Now, Chris Garrett had commented in this chat message, and I think another one, and then I had a little interaction with him on the Ken Stout show. And Chris, I bow to you. You were right. I was wrong in understanding what George was wanting to do here, because Chris responded to George saying booting to a drive from a different computer may be possible. You may have issues with device drivers. Do you just want to get your important info? I did not understand. I did not catch between George's two comments here that it appears here that he did want to set up dual boot, so he could dual boot either to the drive that's in the computer or to the USB connected drive. Now, the only thing I know that you can do here is select your boot device when you turn on your computer. Now, there might be a BIOS setting. I don't know. It seems like there's this option somewhere to make your computer go to the boot option screen every time you restart it. And then you would have to choose boot from the USB device. Now, that's assuming the computer is capable of booting from a USB device. I think that's something that's only in recent several years, models of computers. But since, I think, yeah, he ordered a new computer connected to new, not a different computer, but I think he's saying a new computer. So if you want to dual boot, then you'd have to be selecting your boot device at boot time. It's not like setting up a dual boot on a single drive where you might have multiple partitions and you want to be able to select which partition to boot from each time you restart the computer. So you're selecting a different boot device. I don't think of that as dual boot, because that's not what Windows calls dual boot. If you set up in Windows for a dual boot, let's see, I think that isn't MS-config where we can do that. I've never set it up. If you go here to boot, do we get some options in here to set it? You can have multiple different boot sources here, and you can choose as default. So here's advanced options. So if you had multiple partitions that had boot installation of Windows on each partition, this would be what I think of as dual boot. And continuing on, let's see, we read through Chris's, and then George says, I will be receiving a new laptop around May 10th. So I will get in contact with you by email so we can discuss what to do. Now, George sent me an email yesterday. I'm not going to bring it up on screen, but I'm going to discuss it. Let's see, why did I not want to bring it up on screen? I think because it reveals his email address. Yeah, and I don't want to do that. So he says, hi, Doug, glad to meet you. Well, glad to meet you too, George, and welcome to the community here. My ID in your chat is SGTGJJ. Say that 3 times real fast. I double Doug dare you. Hey, that's cool. Double dog dare you? No. The phrase is double Doug dare you. Hey, that's cool. I like that. My ID in your chat is SGT, Sergeant, GJJ, George J. Justine. I asked about dual boot. If you can call me at my cell phone number, we can make arrangements for you to help me. My number is such and such. I'm not going to read his number out. That's another reason why I didn't want to show the email, right? No, George, I don't make phone calls. I don't give out my cell phone number. I think you're new around here, so you didn't know that. That's fine. I try to keep my time for this channel restricted to the actual live streams with very little preparation. I don't do phone conversations, and I don't even do email conversations. That's why I didn't reply to your email. I want you to know this right off the bat. People send me emails. I invite them to send me emails with a question that I can respond to during Windows Daily. I don't want to get involved in emails back and forth because that can easily get out of hand. And I want this channel to scale up a lot over the next few years. So I need to keep things in a very manageable control level. So now another way is if you want to have a voice conversation with me, any of you watching this channel can request to come in on a Zoom session during a Windows Daily episode. Zoom session is not limited just to Saturday shows, although it's been very rare that we do a Zoom session during a Windows Daily, mainly because nobody's asked for it. If you ask to come in on Zoom during a Windows Daily, we'll set that up. We can have a two-way conversation with the viewers involved in watching the conversation. So if you feel, George, that we need to have a conversation before your next steps, that would be the way to do it. Okay, now that explains to George why I didn't respond to his email, and I hope you'll understand that. And frankly, it's my channel, my rules. So even if you don't understand it, that's the way it's got to be. And it's a way to keep, YouTube channels, when a YouTube channel grows too fast, the content creator usually gets burned out. And my strategy in this channel is to add one element at a time and get to a stable thing that I can repeat over and over and over, and add more features at a moderate pace as we go. I have lots of other features that I plan to add to this channel, but just not trying to do everything right now. That is a formula for burnout for sure. And this is not my job. I have a full-time business. Let's see, people saying hello. Military and retired police sergeant. Oh, so the sergeant there is referring to your police rank, but you're also, what, military background? Did you do a full military career and then maybe also a full police career? Yeah, we're just curious. I'm curious. Certainly you don't have to go into a lot of detail if you don't want to, but we do like to get to know each other around here. Yates Networks. Well, no, it may have just been a name change. I don't know. It's been years now. He's referring back to that MSP service, I think. Ken Stout saying, thank you for your service for both, and same from me, George. Ken Stout says, 95B in military if Army. Yeah, it's over my head. I did not serve in military. It wasn't the thing when I was of that age. Anyways, moving forward, ZV Minor F12 and select the boot drive. Well, F12 isn't the same on all brands of computers. I mean, the boot, the key, the function key to use for selecting a boot device, I know in some cases it's F9. I've seen it as F12. It seems to me like there might be two or three, or at least two, F9 and F12 I can think of. But it seems like there's one or two other function keys to select a boot device. Also, if the old laptop did not have UEFI secure boot, good point, Chris. If the old laptop, if the drive that you took out of the, let's see, what did he, okay, I got to go back and see. What was actually the failure? Coming back here. Take a hard drive removed from a damaged laptop. So we're going to assume here that the laptop was damaged in a way that did not affect the hard drive. If the computer had secure boot, you might have a real difficult situation, maybe impossible, booting that hard drive on another computer. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that sequence. If you were to put in a different drive into the damaged computer and it had secure boot enabled, I don't think you'd be able to boot, because that's secure boot is supposed to prevent anything of the boot configuration from changing without proper authorization. I have not researched that very well. What circumstances does secure boot stop you in your tracks? And what are the things you can do? Is the laptop a Dell? Thank you for service from Chris. Bobby, it took 10 minutes to get my desktop on the smartboard this morning. It's a Dell all-in-one. Okay, so he's got a Dell all-in-one computer connected to the smartboard. Took 10 minutes to get to my desktop. Took 10 minutes to get to my desktop. This was the replacement computer, I guess. 10 minutes to get it on the smartboard. Sounds to me like 10 minutes to get to the desktop, like the computer's taking a long time to start up. Dawn Tamara says, add me to your map. Dawn from Texas. I don't have, you might be seeing some of my old videos where I had the Google Earth map showing different where people were at. And I'm not doing that anymore. That's so last year's Doug. Don Tamara. I don't recognize your name, Don, so please hang around. We'd like to see some conversation from you. And how did you find us? George and Don Tamara, how did you find my channel? I'd like to know that from the two of you. Ran Israel, you can use BCD Edit to add additional boot entries. Okay, the BCD Edit would be a DOS level, command line way of doing it, wouldn't it? So BCD Edit, would you launch that from here? BCD Edit, exit from there. How about from here? BCD Edit. I know BCD Edit. I know I've done things with it before, but I'm not finding it. I think it's maybe you have to be booted to recovery mode or something. 3 Doug Knight. There you go. There's another one. 3 Doug Knight. Double Doug dare you. 3 Doug Knight. And what was that? Seems like there was another one recently we hit. Boot Manager software exists, certainly. Why would you do that if it's available within Windows? Maybe there's some other feature that a third-party boot manager lets you do. I don't know. Haven't had much occasion to do that. Thought about it many times. Let's see. Hello's back and forth. I don't mess with BCD. Lawn Dog's been a long time, Doug, since I have created dual boot machine. I typically use third-party program to interrupt the boot cycle and allow you to choose which operating system you wanted to run. Well, let me go back to msconfig. See, maybe we don't need a third-party software anymore. If we go to boot, there's this set as default. So if you have multiple different, if you have at least 2 bootable operating systems, you can obviously set one as default, but can you, all boot settings permanent, can you set it so that you're always asked, which one do you want to boot this time? Of course, you could come into MS Config and change your default boot. And this has to be accessing the BCD, boot configuration data, because you're having access here to both operating systems that you have. So when you set as default here in Windows 10 and then you reboot into Windows 11, let's say, the default boot option should show the same as it shows when you're in the Windows 10. Yates Networks, is he running Linux? If so, I would advise against it. Windows tends to trash the Grub2 bootloader. Just run one operating system per device or use a VM. Did he tell us? Damaged laptop has Windows 10 on it. Want to connect to a new computer with Windows on it. So he's no Linux. The new computer is going to have Windows. It looks to me like he just wants to boot off of a USB connected drive that came out of the damaged computer. Now, another problem there that Chris did allude to, is you may have issues with device drivers. And I do have a lot of experience with restoring an image file from computer A onto computer B, and then trying to run the computer. And that's been hit and miss. Sometimes it'll work well. Sometimes it'll work with some device driver problems, and I have to go fix those device driver problems. And sometimes, as in the case of the Big Beast build that some people on this channel still laugh at me for even trying to do, I had made a boot image off of my prior custom build computer and restored it onto this custom build computer with about 13 years difference between the computers. And tried to boot that old image on this computer. That didn't go well, not at all. And I think I have some videos on my channel of what happened. I don't really remember, but did not go well at all. So it's a little bit of a gamble as to whether that will work or not. But you can try it. Doesn't harm anything to try it. Lawn Dog, just to let you know, Doug, I am back home. I spent 2 months in Idaho helping my dad with medical issues. Well, thank you for helping with family issues. And I applaud anybody who takes time out of their normal life to go help with family. In this case, his dad. Good on you. Greg M., NeoSmart has an easy NCD app. And that has to do, BCD? Do you mean NCD or boot? Neo configuration device. Let's go see what that is. Take control of your bootloader, dual boot, anything you could want. Microsoft doesn't support XP, Windows 9, MS-DOS. So I'm suspecting this might give you a wider range of things that you could boot to. But in this case, I think George is dealing with probably Windows 10 on both devices, maybe Windows 11 on the new computer. It's unlikely that your Linux will remain intact. Windows only says the love Linux. They have ulterior motives in their close ties to Ubuntu. Yeah, Windows functionality for Linux is kind of narrow purposes. George says, totally understand, thanks. I'm going to guess that has to do with the phone call. Explanation, I have NeoSmart from Chris. George did 33 years on police. And then was it a full career in the military or just a 2-year, 4-year stint? Zavi Minor, all new computers, F12. The old was F8. Yeah, I was thinking F8 too, but F8 was startup options. And then with the F8 options, wasn't one of those options for boot choice? And I think it was usually F9. F8 would give you like start menu or safe mode and command prompt and USB device and multi-boot and a couple other things. Seldom Ball, my understanding is that booting Windows from USB is not easy, so a different hardware configuration might be appropriate. Chris, that is why I asked if it was Dell. Dell is usually F12, HP is Escape. Escape for choosing a boot device, or is that for the boot menu where one of the items is the boot device? We don't really need to nail that down. But on most HPs, you can use Escape and F9. Options are just a little different. It may be delete keys on the keyboard. I run Linux and Windows VM from Yates Networks. Chris, yes, could be delete. I think Acer's delete key. I'm quite a ways behind. Don Tamara, yes. Sorry. Yes. What did I say that Don is replying? Yes. Don from Texas. I'm not sure what the yes was replying to. John Williams, it's okay. You don't have to explain that unless it's pertinent for me to understand it. John Williams, is there a possibility the extra hard disk drive could be installed as a guest network? No. No. I think you're misunderstanding the concept of guest network. Usually that's referring to a Wi-Fi that may be in an office environment or even in a home environment. You may have a Wi-Fi service for your own use where you can interact with your other devices on your network. And a guest network would be usually a different IP subnet where a guest could connect to your guest Wi-Fi network and get to the internet, but they could not access any of your devices. So guest network is not within one computer itself. It's within the network of connected devices. You might have security cameras in your home on the guest network so they can communicate with the internet, but maybe you don't want that Wi-Fi network to be accessible to the computers in your home. Or maybe you do, but the key there is to prevent hackers from getting into your network and into your computers. They could hack into the guest network, but we don't. And if you give credentials to guests in your home or business, you don't want them to go hacking around onto your computers. Josh says, I know on my Ant computer that I was working on it, the delete key on the keyboard. And Chris says, I like that map. Yeah, I like the map too. It just took some maintenance to deal with it. Don Tamara, look for help on fixing my computer. Oh, Don, you can ask your question in chat here. I'm going to scroll down and see if there's any specific question from Don. You can ask your question in chat. You can send me an email to this email address and ask your question. I'll respond during a Windows Daily episode. And you can come into Zoom if you want to have a two-way conversation. You don't have to have your camera on, but I very much like for people to have their camera on. And on Saturdays, we have the Zoom session open for the whole time, and it's about a 2-hour-long session. I'm a little bit over time now. Yates Networks, that screams malware to me. If it's taking 10 minutes, it's best to wipe and reload, but flash your BIOS first, provided malware is detected on the machine. I disagree with that. If you, after you restart the computer, right-click in the taskbar, go to Task Manager, and check to see what's taking up time. Well, what's taking CPU, what's taking memory, and focus on that. I've seen a lot of times that it's indexing, Windows indexing, that it's got really sluggish. You can go delete your index files and recreate them, or turn indexing off. You can go to the Startup tab and turn on extra columns. You see Startup Impact here, but if you right-click on any of these column headings and choose Disk I/O at Startup, right-click again, choose CPU at Startup, you can see what's happening at Startup. Now, you can do this later. See, these columns are showing what's happening on my CPU and my Disk I/O at startup time. So I don't have to do this during or as soon as I start the computer. I'm seeing right now that Creative Cloud Desktop was taking 44,000 milliseconds. No, CPU. Yeah, I guess that's CPU cycles. Disk I/O is taking this much hard drive, and I can sort these columns to see what's taking up the most time at startup. So if it's taken 10 minutes to get to your desktop, you should be able to find the explanation in here. And you can just disable items in here. If you suspect that there's some kind of malware going on there, then that can drive your attention to where it is. But I've seen lots of slow startups being caused by things other than malware. Oh, I lost my highlight. Where am I at? I know this is bad for your eyes when I'm scrolling up and down. Yeah, here, Yates screams to me malware. Rand Israel says run as administrator. BCD Edit is a good product key finder and boot management. It's obscenely expensive, but they have a free version. Rand Israel MS config cannot add a new entry, only manipulate existing ones. Well, yeah, certainly. You can't add a new entry that doesn't exist. You'd have to shrink down your big partition. Let's see, right click. Sorry, Ken, I'm going overtime because I got questions in here. Deal with it. Disk management, you would come into disk management and shrink down your partition that exists there, and then boot to a Windows installation media and install a new Windows installation on the available partition space. So like take a partition here and right click and choose shrink volume to shrink that down. That gives you an extra partition space, and you could install Windows there. Then after you've done that, you could come into MS Config and manage the partition. Easy RE is another partition manager, I think. Yup, that's Sleeping Doug's lie. Good one. All disk imaging not created equal. Ken, how'd that go? I don't know what you're referring to there. Ran Israel, Easy BCD is a GUI alternative to BCD Edit, much easier to work with. Yates, Acronis is great, but again, I recommend keeping disk images for each system respectfully and no mixing and matching. Acronis is great, but again, I recommend keeping disk images for each system respectively, perhaps, and no mixing and matching. Not quite sure what that's in response to. To select the booting, I would just use F8 or F12. Different hardware configurations end up with problems. ASUS is F8. Good morning, waking up to Doug. I was up until 2 something last night. No more, meaning not going to do that anymore. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. F8, F12 before Windows loads. You have to run BCD as edit in command as an admin for it to work. Okay, so here's a command prompt. Administrator, BCD, edit. Oh, yeah, it did run. Okay, so I guess before I didn't open as administrator, or did I spell it wrong? If I just go into command prompt without administrator, BCD edit, it's still BCD edit. The boot configuration data store could not be open. Access is denied. Is that what I got last time I tried it? Might be. And I didn't pay attention. I just thought the command was not found. F9 on HP, several options. Josh, Doug, I'm going to need to Zoom link for Saturday so I can come in on my phone, please. So you should have, Ken Stout emailed the link to you recently. It's the same link. Send an email to me, Josh, if you want me to send you the Zoom credentials, and anybody who wants to join the Zoom session, you send an email asking for the credentials. You can Google it, but reminds me I need to make that document using Scribus. Google it, reminds me. I think I've lost the conversation thread for Yates. George, Army active reserve for a total of 6-year obligation. Well, again, thank you for your service. That's going on the Substack. A document showing the proper keys to enter BIOS. Oh, okay. That's the document you're talking about. Show all the different keys. How far behind am I? Ugh. Kind of glancing through these. George is going to send me a detailed email on the issue. Fine. Stand corrected. Good call. Slow startups, respectively, is what Yates meant. Okay, I'm going to read through those messages better after I end the stream, but I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. If you have the automatic auto redirect turned on, then this should send you to Ken Stout's live show starting momentarily. I hope that was useful. Have a great day. Catch you later. Goodbye.